Welcome back on Dynamod. Today I want to propose you a video about how I assembled and painted the Illuminor Szeras model. This is a model that I completely like, but I had some troubles during working on it, so I decided to share with you my ideas, my problems and so on, and also my scheme of color, because it can be useful for you maybe to realize and so on, so at least give you some direction, some ideas on how you can realize some particular effect that can be perfect on such one. So we take the sprue of the Illuminor Szeras. So I take a nipper and I start to remove from the sprue the central part of the model, the inner one, that is the basin and the first part of the column shoulder, so that I can build the internal part and then everything that it's surrounding it, because it's the anchorage part of the model. You need to pay attention because it's a bit delicate in a way when you remove from the sprue. And then I polish the pieces that I cut from the sprue using some cutters, some files and so on with delicate ways, so that I remove the excess of plastic that it's still on such pieces. This is useful for different reasons, because I need to assemble in a clean way so that I don't have something that it ruins the assembly, but also because when I go to paint such model, when I paint I don't see, I can say, anesthetical part. So for example I have some lines or I have some little pieces that make ruin a perfect surface and so on. So take your time, because you have to be a bit precise when you go to do such thing, but it's quite amazing the final result. And then I glue the basin together. This is to have a more stable part to use when assembling and trying the rest of the model. So take your time, use a little bit of glue so that you don't have an excess, because you don't need too much of glue here. Then we can move these pieces aside and start to cut from the sprue the part that is related about the first leg and the decoration about the basin, so that I can start to build the first of the, I can say, sub-assembling part. So you have to pay attention, because you need to take step by step. So as usual, you have to polish what you remove from the sprue and so on, and again take your time, because you don't have to be hasty when you do such things, because they are quite delicate parts, and even if some damaged parts can be quite interesting, it's better to have mainly good, because it depends by you if you want to ruin or make the things perfectly suited. And then I try my first subassembly of such models. So I use some blue tack to try to combine them together to see how they are going to be positioned, how then I should glue them together, and how they should be put on, because in such a way I can decide how to proceed then. Then I take the attack or equivalent super glue or so on, it's up to you to decide which one you want to use, and then I glue together the first leg to the basin, because I decided that this leg it's okay in that positioning. Then I take some tweezers with a bit of paper to clean the extra glue that come out from the two contacting parts. It's a good trick to clean everything before that it dry. And then I try to see how the first part of the back really combine with the part of the basin. And then I remove the second leg from the sprue. About the order for the legs, I want to remind you that I'm following the instruction, because I need a direction about how to proceed, and the instructions were perfect about giving me an idea of how to proceed. So I decided to follow them for the main part of it. And remember to always polish the pieces that you remove. So you can make different choices and so on, but remember that you cut some pieces, you polish them, and you follow an idea at least on how to proceed, but always polish the pieces before to proceed to other ones. So step by step, not remove everything, because otherwise you risk to miss some polishing of some pieces. Then I use again the attack. In this video I'll use only the attack as glue, so there is no worry about. And I assemble the second leg that I just got, and I do this, pay attention about how I position it and so on, gluing everything together and making that I am able to understand how the things are together, because it's an interesting pieces, but it's combined in a lot of different pieces, so hard to realize really good how I want that it's done. If you want to remove such leg from its base, you have to do in before to have such step anyway. And then I remove the back plates of the basin and the third leg from the sprue, so that I had to proceed step by step. Remember that you have to pay attention on how you want to proceed, so if you want to change something in the way that you proceed, it's up to you decide, but I suggest you to plan what you are going to do as you proceed. So don't think that you can assemble everything together, because you have problem then about painting or assembling some things. So study how you want to proceed. And then it's glue time again. So I use again the attack to glue the third leg to the model, because the first leg it was not so stable and I needed more stability to manipulate and proceed with this model. So I decided to glue the parts together and to polish the contacts about them, because I decided that these parts put together were not a problem about then the painting, and gluing them together I was able to make that these parts of the model were able to give me the real base that I needed to proceed with the rest of the model. And I glued in this moment also the first part of the back. And then I removed the upper part of the back from the sprue. Remember that this is an important part of the model. You don't have to glue it right after you have removed it from the sprue, but it's important to study how to put everything together, because it's part of the center part of the model, and polish it quite accurately, because even if it doesn't seem and so on, a lot of such part will be seen after that you glued everything together. So remember that you have to pay a bit more attention to such a piece of the model. And I decided to glue the backplates of the basin now. It's up to you to decide when you want. It's something that you can even move in your ideas even quite after, so don't worry. And I decided to do this because I wanted to have a really nice impact, and I decided that painting it was not a problem. Even now you don't have to glue the upper part of the back. And then it's time to remove from the sprue the upper part of the body of the model. Here you have to take your time because it's quite delicate to remove from the sprue, so you have to pay a bit of attention and polish it quite accurately, because it's a really exposed part, moreover in the thinner part of it, so take your time. And this it's a step that you have to study a bit, because it's now that you have to decide if you want to change the positioning and so on, if you want to keep the original position of the model and so on. So polish it quite gently, and in the while think if you need to change something. And I suggest you to use some glue tack to understand how it fit on the model. So to understand how you can position it and so on, how it works, use a bit of glue tack to make a sort of temporary assembly, and start to use such steps to create a sort of temporary analyzing of what you need as the proceeding, so that you can understand how you are going to do, and so also decide if you need something to be painted before or afterwards, so to make a sort of sub painting one. So this is a good way to study what you need. And then I glued together the upper part of the Illuminor Szeras. Before I have to remove the blue tack that I used to experiment, so I remove it, and if there are some residual on the model, you only need to simply use some blue tack to remove the residual parts. Then I glued a side of the upper part, then I glued the back on it, and then, only then, after I done such step, I glued the other part. Remember to use only a little amount of glue, cause it's what you need. So you have only to pay attention, and you had to decide before anyway if you needed to paint it separately. And then I removed from the sprue the head of Illuminor Szeras and a really difficult tube. So you have to remove them, pay attention because they are quite small and a bit delicate. So when you polish them, you have to use a really delicate way and files and so on, because it's something that it's quite easy to break. So pay attention when you do such. And then obviously I use some blue tack after that I seen where the pieces goes on the model to put in position, and so seen when I build the model where have then to glue and everything, and decide when I have to glue them, because for example the head will go to cover part of the breast, so I decided to have it before or after. So this is something that you have to plan before going to paint, so use some blue tack to decide. And after some thoughts I decided to glue the little tube that we had just seen on the model. So I put a bit of glue on the both part of it, and I put it on the pieces, but it's not so easy. So even if you use some tweezers and so on, you have to pay quite a bit of attention, because it's really small and it's not in a really good position to assembly, and you can't do beforehand because the two different parts are on two different pieces. So you have to build before the upper part of the body of the Illuminor Szeras and then put these pieces on it. So you have to pay attention about this and put it in the right position. Trying to forget what just happened. Anyway, I have a solution that I'll show you later. I decided to prepare the first arm of the model, that it's the one with the weapon, and I really love such weapon. It's really quite amazing one, and you have to pay quite a lot of attention when you polish these parts, because this is really quite delicate. So really pay attention, do everything that you need with a lot of attention, eventually do multiple times but slowly, and so make that you can polish this part quite attentively, because it's something that it's a sort of show off of the model. It's one of the things that you see more on the model itself. And then I use some blue stack to try in position these parts, so to understand how they should be put and how it works on the model itself. And now we have the really most delicate parts of the model, that are the third and fourth of the arms, because here you have to pay attention because they are really quite delicate parts, and so you need with the blood vortex arms to pay a bit of attention, because not a bit but a lot of attention, because it's really quite easy to break everything. So you have to pay attention and do this step by step. Take your time, do multiple times but slowly, so that you are able to perfect it, because the details are really thin and small. So take your time, breathe slowly, and doing this really paying a bit of attention, not a bit, I remember you, a lot of attention about such steps. Then I remove the wristband of the third arm and the other part of this arm, so that I can glue everything together. Remember to pay attention when you move moreover the accessory part of such third arm, because it's quite delicate and it risks to be really broken quite easily. So take your time when you're doing, and remember that even if you do this quite attentively, it's risky. So it can happen like you're seeing now that it broke, combined with something that happened before about the tubes. Okay, my mantra it's really going crazy today, but anyway, it's not too much a problem. So okay, take your time and polish everything so that then we can repair everything. So pay attention, remove, prepare everything together. Eventually you can move on the wristband so that you can make it to calm yourself down before to repair the damaged part, because it's not something quite a lot problematic. So we take a bit of attack, that it's the glue that it's saving me this time, and we glue with a little amount of glue together the two little parts that has broken, so we can repair the vortex and combine it. It's really quite easy. Remember that you can anyway to repair the parts make that when you combine you make that you need to polish everything so that it doesn't seem like something really happened. So slowly you do what you need. So don't worry too much, and I positioned temporarily the wristband so that I was able with a bit of blue tack to take everything together and make seeing what was happening and how it works the arm itself on the model. And then we can proceed with the fourth arm, that it's still quite delicate, but it's a bit easy to manipulate, so you have a bit less stress, mental one, to do. Anyway, pay attention because the surfaces are anyway a bit more comfortable, but not so great. So pay attention and do this, paying a lot of attention how you proceed. So little by little goes, because there are a lot again of surface of the blood vortex on this arm that can be really quite easily broken. Luckily it's not happened this time, but still you need a bit, because also the two parts that are composing this last arm are really quite thin, so pay a bit of attention because it's everything on a single finger. Then with a bit of blue tack we see what it's with all the four arms together. And then it's time for the shoulder pads. So I remove first one of them with its accessory so that I can build them together, eventually using a bit of blue tack to put everything together after that I polish them. And I try them with a bit again of blue tack on the model. This is something that you have to need to do, because it's something that let you understand if you need to build and glue them together before painting or afterward. It's something that it's quite important, because it's one of the main parts that you can see. I decided to take, for example, them off of the model before painting, but you can decide afterwards, so you can see how everything works trying. And then we had to build the back generator. In this case, you have to remember that it's going to be linked to two different pieces, so you have to pay attention. In the case that you have to decide, I suggest you to link it before on the arm that it is, so that it's easier to link it with the shoulder pads, adding or removing parts or adjusting. In the link with the arm, it's a bit more difficult. And then I go to glue the two different accessories of the shoulder pads to them, because I need them to be fixed so that I can understand better how to behave with the model itself. And now it's time for the unlucky deprived blood guy. About this, the real thing that you have to pay attention it's about the blood that it's flowing out, because it's quite thin and quite delicate, so take your time to polish it and do it slowly, because it's quite easy to break eventually. So really pay attention and so on, and do step by step, not be in a hurry about this. Unluckily, no one can help him. Then it's time for the fourth and last leg of the model. I kept this as the last one because I needed to build the main body to understand how it was as size and so on, and the guy that we had just seen, because this leg is the link of the Illuminor Szeras with the guy. So it's this time when you have to think about if you want that these two parts are together or not. Because if you glue them together, it will be a unique model that is everything together. Or if you want to separate it, it's better to do now, because in such a way you are able to cut cleanly the two parts and having the painting successfully. So I tried and see what it's more convenient for me to do as decision. Then I used the glue to put together the unlucky guy. In this case, I decided that except for the base with the arm of the unlucky guy, I could glue together everything else because it was anyway quite easy to paint, so I would not need something difficult and so on to make some subassembling about this. It's my decision, but you can decide differently. Anyway, it's asking for nothing, some help. So I removed the patafix from the model to prepare for the subassembling painting that I planned, because it's something that I decided to do painting different parts, otherwise not good reaching with the brushes or so on, or something that it was a bit tiring to do without having such subassembling parts. So I decided to do, but before I had also to correct one thing that I had a problem with, and it's the tube that again I lost before in a bad way. Okay, my mantra goes on, and so I decided to use a piece of guitar chord. You have to select the size that you need about it, because it's something that it's quite good, and you have to cut the amount of strip of this guitar part that you need, and eventually you can use some finger and so on, for example some nipper or so on, to bend it so that it has the size that you need. And I suggest you to use a driller to make a little deeper the hole where you have to insert this part, so that you have better grip. Not exaggerate, but simply make that the contact better, because the final result maybe it's even better than what you started with, so it's quite nice. About painting, I decided to use the original one scheme as referring, but changing a little bit. As usual, I decided to start from the black primary of the Vallejo to make a base color to use. So I think that it's perfect suited for this. So take your time and paint everything. As main metallic color of the model, I decided to use the lit picture base of the Citadel, and you have to decide where to put such ones. So eventually you have to think how you go to paint the different parts, the different conjunctions and so on. Remember that you need different methods to paint the different parts, so you can decide how you can develop such a scheme of color, because it can be quite interesting. Here you can see that I painted the junction mainly as parts of the metal, in this case of silver one. The second metallic color that I use is the scale color 75 Victorian brass. This is used to give the second main color of the skeleton of the model itself. So the one having, I can see the bones themselves. If the junction is made with the silver, the main bones, metallic bones of the models are done with this Victorian brass, and I really like the final result. It's not ended, but it gives a really nice color to use. So it's something that I suggest you eventually to use or change if you need. Then I use the scale color 75 black forest green to give a particular effect about the pads of the armor itself and to the pads of the leg. In this case, I wanted to make a sort of energy effect so that it could a sort of give insight of energy that this model goes to bring to the light. So I use a particular trick. I use such color also on metallic ones. I need another metallic color to paint this model, so I used the retributor base of the Citadel. This is because it was a good way to change the lights on the model, giving a sort of different metal effects, and it was, I think, quite perfect to do such, because it was quite similar to the Victorian brass, but also quite different. And these similar but different colors was something that I was searching for as a result. And I used the Screaming Bell base of the Citadel to paint some of the walls of the model to give the sort of ancient part for them. And then I used the Nunoil shade of the Citadel. I don't use it quite often, but it's perfect to reduce the shining of the metallics. And because this model is mainly based on these metallics, it was perfect to make it with such light that I really needed. Then I used the erratic green of the scale curve 75 to give light to the green. So, for example, to the eye of the head, because I need to paint it separately and I wanted something that it was more relevant, so it was seen that it was in a way shiny, and to give light to the borders of the black forest screen that I done before, to give a sort of light effect that was needed. And then I used the black green ink of the Vallejo to blend the colors together. It's perfect suited, for example, for the pads and so on, because they give you the effect of the green, the light, but at the same time they give you a sort of translucent color that it's really wonderful at the end. And then I used the blood for the blood god technical core of the Citadel to give that blood effect. In this case, I suggest you to make some experiment, because it can give you different tones of color based on the base color that you are going to use. So the black color give you something, the white color give you something else. If you use a rose or a purple, give other option too. So eventually try to experiment which one is the final effect that you want to eventually give some variation. Here we can see how it is the model just right after painted, and I really like, but now we need to paint the base. For the base I use the Wavering Color Snow of the Vallejo and the Agrax Earthshade shade of the Citadel. I love such combination, and here it's the final effect. At the end I decided to remove the guy from the base, so to separate it from the leg, and glue together the leg with a part of blood coming from the weapon. And I really like the final effect of such a model. I had a lot of fun. It has been a lot of problematic to realize, but it's something that I'm really glad to have painted, and it's something that I suggest you to try too. Anyway, I painted the unlucky guy and I moved it on a separate base, 40mm one, because I want it to be combined with the Illumnor Szeras or create it like a mark or so on, anyway to use it. Simply I preferred to use it separately because I liked more the Illumnor Szeras alone. So this it's a asking help one, but it does commove me. So from Dino Mode, it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.